Hello and welcome to season 4 of Own Your Divine Light show. I am Isla Serrano Miller, which is the magical name of Janet, and I'm just stepping into that name, so I'm bringing it into the show today. And we've all been going through so much, and it's feeling like things are lifting, yet the horizon is still unknown. And today, our guest is an amazing person who has stepped into her truth and passion. Welcome, Melanie Fitzpatrick. And I'm going to tell you a little more about Melanie. Melanie is an igniter of truth and personal development. She is passionate about championing women in all ages and stages of life, especially the fifth decade. And she's navigated her own awakening and reinvention from a 20-year cooperative career and recognizes that the awakened woman can move mountains and is the change agent this world needs today. Love those words. And now she's happily guiding women who are ready to find their truth, pursue their desires, and grow into their highest potential. If they can feel stuck and unclear into how to move through all their patterns, Melanie facilitates women through this process in her virtual women's groups, workshops, and private coaching so they feel empowered to create the life they love. She's also the founder of Truth Platform and podcast host of Live in Your Truth Radio. Welcome, Melanie. So excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And, I love that you're such a catalyst and you've caused your career to change. And now you're helping everyone to shift as well. Because stepping out of the corporate world, I keep noticing how many women in the spiritual world had such a strong corporate background. It's almost like they had to have that to be able to bring this to the world. They needed that firm foundation in the real world and know the world, how it runs and how it all works. And now you are stepping in as a catalyst. So how did this happen a little? Just tell us a little bit about how that happened and, how are you feeling about it today?
Great.
Just a little, tell us.
Yeah, I feel great about it all. I've definitely learned how to accept my past and have compassionate for all my younger selves who ushered me through many trials and tribulations and joys and adventure and fun to be in this place I am today. So I'm extremely grateful for them and also for you for this opportunity to really talk about some of the really powerful elements that everyone needs to learn really about embodying empowered masculine and feminine energy. But, first I wanted to touch upon something you said just after the introduction about it's interesting how women all seem to have embraced a corporate experience, a corporate career. And I think that that's a historically based evolution of our process. And that was how we first got to learn how to embody some masculine energy. And because truly, if the world is lopsided with an energy today, it's masculine energy. And the masculine energy is that of the doing. And if there isn't a more larger entity or structural system than the whole corporate entity and like-minded businesses, that it's all about the doing, the executing, the growth, the expansion. And I think that's how we cut our eye teeth, was learning, how to be successful, how to be proficient and productive. And that all felt good. That was empowering to us. And as a result, we furthered the whole movement for women in our escalation to become successful and prove. There was a lot of proving happening then, Janet. And so whether you went into healthcare, you went into education, you went into business, you went into the arts, those are all ways in which we evolved and learned how to actually develop our skill and develop and cultivate our gifts and what we're here to do. There's just one problem with that. It got very lopsided. We subjugated our own feminine essence, as well as men did the same thing in that whole corporate experience. And I think some women today would attest that, boy, they know something is so off about their life, but they can't name it.
Mm.
And it's just really, that was, so that the good news is for women is that, we got to cultivate this sense of maybe even a little agency and ownership of our skills. But it also, I found, and this was my personal experience, just to give you a little quick background of my story, is that 20 plus years later, I was the most successful female corporate salesperson in the country. And
Wow.
yeah, and I mean, I'm an Aries. If you know what the energy of the astrological sign of the Aries is, they're all about like sort of embodying that Artemis energy of that Greek goddess who she actually sees what her target is. She pulls her bow back and she releases it, and boom, it hits her target. And she becomes this like manifester of everything she wants. And so that was unconsciously an archetypal energy I embodied naturally. That's like the Aryan energy. And so I loved adventure and I loved a new challenge, and I loved going seeking
Mm.
for that next sale, even just personal development or spiritual enlightenment. It's interesting because I did all that, but I also found a guru in my 20s, and an Indian guru, and I was simultaneously like developing a career and also my spirituality with having an Indian guru for a decade. And it was I felt like I was two different people. It was a little confusing for me because I was like extremely alternative, and I was also a vegetarian, and I was like really out there spiritually. But I also knew that I really wanted success, so I pursued that. And eventually, I started to hit some of those milestones that one does in their 30s, right? I got married. I had my first baby, and then in my 40s, my career took off. It became like super high powered, and I had a toddler. That's like, that's not ideal timing, but that's just the way it unfolded for me. But ultimately, my 50s, when I was in that whole perimenopausal state, and that really drew me into the most deepest introspective point in those first 4 decades of my life. And I realized that, I wanted something more. It was great to be successful. I'd loved being acknowledged. I needed that. I came from a really huge Catholic family from New England. And, young parents, what did they know about parenting, right? So you had to find your way. And so for me, there was a lot of proving going on, and I had the energy and the drive to do that. But then I began to be weary and long for something else, and I just couldn't name what that something else was. I was too busy. I was too busy, like with that big career I had manifested, and then the lifestyle that comes from a big career. And while that was great to support my family and to experience a great material expansion, which I think we all get to that point in our lives that we want, but then it became like about 2008 when the market crashed and my business crashed with it. I began to feel lost and not have the mojo to sort of turn that Titanic around. So I I began to like do what a lot of people do when you get really miserable. You start to pray to God. You're like, please help me. And so I got thrown a lifeline in 2010, and a friend of mine invited me out to California to a inspiring speakers program. And I spent the whole week, and I found my first mentor who helped me on a really high level. And so I began to study with her. She was a transformational leader. And in 2010, thus began my spiritual awakening. And I began peeling back all these layers that I allowed to define me, but weren't really who I truly was. And so I ended up really going through that chrysalis phase that often you do when you go through an awakening. You get really messy and kind of ugly too. And so, it was like, that statement about the only way through pain, the only way to the other side of pain is through.
Yeah.
And so that's what I ended up doing, was just, I had an awesome mentor and teacher, and that just opened up all the floodgates with tools of how to do this and how to just sit and be with myself. So she actually was all about crafting your dreams. And so I didn't really allow myself to dream. I didn't grow up. We just kind of survived. We all of our needs were met, but there wasn't like any sort of encouragement towards, become your best self or be who you're going to be and dream big. Like, that didn't exist in the framework of my upbringing. It was very pragmatic. It was this sort of New England sentiment. And I know you know about that.
Oh, sure. I'm a New Englander.
Right? Exactly. So, for me, I gave myself permission to dream, and my dream was to leave corporate,
Mm.
to find out, to figure out what is that something more, and I know that a lot of women in their fourth, fifth, and decades, they do, if they've never gave themselves permission to, like, either dream or to allow themselves to pursue something they always wanted to, it becomes that time where you allow yourself to, like, really dig deep and peel back the layers and figure out, what is that something more I am so longing for. And so I thought the start was that my dream should be to leave corporate, and I should figure it out and make it happen. And it was hard because, big income, a significant income provider for my family. So how were we going to walk away from that 6-figure plus income and, like, all those yummy trappings that it afforded us, right?
That's a big decision. It's a big decision. And it takes a lot of courage to do that.
It did. And I think that's what happens. And I'm going to talk a little bit about today, is digging deep and finding your courage, because ultimately that is how the piece that is instrumental in us making changes, and also resilience. And we'll talk about resilience too, because resilience is a significant and practical piece to this puzzle of thriving in a challenging time, right? And so I did that. I realized that I needed to do some more surrendering, and I needed to enroll my husband into this concept of me leaving. And then in the midst of that, the ultimate thing happened, and I had the thing that ultimately helped turn me around was a cancer wake-up call.
Okay.
And so I embraced it. I didn't feel as if my life was going to end because of it. I had been able to, it was just 3 years into my awakening and significant growth, inner growth development. I was really able to cultivate some trust, and I handled it medically, and then I healed myself spiritually, emotionally, and mentally, and especially that area of the body where I had developed the cancer, and I took responsibility for it. And I think ultimately, if you want your life to change for the better, you have to take responsibility, radical responsibility for yourself. And so, by 2014, I had left corporate, and then I sat in stillness for another year and allowed it to unfold. What was this? How did this inner longing, what was it going to translate to? And I knew that, again, embodying that Artemis archetype, because that she is the Greek goddess for goddess of the hunt, the moon, and women. She champions women. So it was really obvious what I was going to do, and it was going to be a combination of helping people to learn how to live in their truth, how to find their truth and live in it, and then really champion women, because I do really believe that women, we're here to move the mountains that are in our way, and really spread equanimity across the planet.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, everything you did, it's just, it's such a great example for people to hear, because, a lot of us won't do that. They won't break through those challenges. It's like, oh, I'm just going to stay here, because they settle. It's called settling in a way, right? Because it is hard. It is hard to shift. And I was like you. I thought, all right, I'm going to break through this challenge, because if I don't, first of all, I'm going to resent myself. I'm never going to know what I'm truly capable of. And um, this is not my calling. My calling, I mean, I was a nurse, and we talked about that, and you did what you did, but we all needed our foundation to have us get to where we are now. So this is so powerful. So what do you see as a predominant disempowering energy for women that blocks us from thriving? What else do you see? I know that's one of them.
It would be that our disconnection from the feminine. And
Okay.
men are also disconnected from the feminine. And this is what the patriarchal society and the conditioning and the training and the sociological elements, especially in our first family, um, really coded us with. And so we have to peel back those layers of thinking that we're only meant to behave a certain way. And so just to give you some specifics, it would be this overdoing. We see women caught up in this overdoing activity. Everything is about doing something, like doing for the family, constantly in a busy state, this busy, frenetic state, and and feeling depleted as a result.
Oh.
Um, Also delaying and depriving their
Mm-hmm.
needs, their basic needs. Always when you're always doing for somebody else and always caring for somebody else, feeding somebody else, earning the money for somebody else, and then you've placed yourself last on the list, then you're really operating from an empty state. And when you're continuously operating from that empty state, that is only going to create imbalances and in sickness within the body, in the emotional mental state. And that's when I looked at my own cancer development. I took responsibility for that, because I saw how I created it, how I put myself like last. And I also was harsh on myself. I had a very harsh inner critic, very harsh judge. And this is part of the inner work that I did, and to reclaim my soul and my truth of who I was also to heal the inner child. And I will talk about that, because that is a significant piece. And so if you're not living in alignment with your needs and present moment awareness and experiencing what that emotion is that you're feeling in the moment, then you're not in alignment with yourself. And I think that a lot of people, they're caught up in this sort of fraud syndrome, and it's because they have these unrealistic expectations, and they haven't really been truly able to own the value of their gifts and their skills. And there's this inner wall that prevents them from fully feeling worthy for that next level of thriving.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I understand that wall. I remember having it for so
Yeah.
long. I was a young mother. I mean, motherhood is a wonderful experience. And we were talking about how mother
Yeah.
opens us up to our divine feminine, doesn't it? And then it also does, and you talked about it. So I'm gonna let you, just bring that in if you want. But it's so
Yeah,
perfect
no,
what you're
I would
talking
love to. Yeah,
about.
we were having this juicy moment right before you went live. And I would say that, motherhood is a significant blessing. But part of our challenge in being the mother is that we also still have that full-time career and job. And we're the amount of responsibility that is stacked on our plate, I mean, causes us to almost just shift automatically into just a place of surviving only. And I really feel deeply about the women, the younger women in their, like maybe their second and third and possibly fourth decade, who experienced what it meant in during the pandemic to, oh my God, to be a mom, to still have to work your job online with your children at home in the background, and to figure out now how do we navigate being in a pandemic, to also become an at-home teacher, like all these things that were once again thrusted upon the mother, right? Sort of this lack of equanimity. And I'm not saying that men didn't step up, because I think that men finally had their eyes open to just the degree of workload, right? So when we're in this whole energetic of doing, then we're not open to receiving. And the energy of receiving is feminine. It is to feel our emotions, to experience our emotions. And it is to really be in touch with our intuition, to hear that inner voice. It's also a part of, that receptivity of receiving, and to know that that feeling of exhaustion is a message being sent to us for us to listen and then to act. And that would be our empowered masculine energy, the doing, the responding, the supporting, the protecting. So we talked about the mama bear, and how she is both nurturing, which is, of course, we know is feminine, but she's also fierce. She's the fierce protector of her baby cubs, right? And so honestly, if there's anything that I like to teach women and anyone who wants to hear, is that how to masterfully embody the empowered feminine and the empowered masculine. Because ultimately, that masculine energy, when it's in its empowered form, is in service to the feminine. Because the feminine is a source of creativity. It is actually that deep wellspring. And when you see the yin yang symbol, and you know how there's the dark half and the light half. Well, that dark half actually represents the feminine, because it represents the deep void, the darkness. Is where we go into stillness. It's spirituality. It's that place of where anything is possible. And so it's like when you want to get still, like in meditation as a daily practice, which is what I recommend, and also make it part of your self-care, is that in that deep voice, oh my goodness, the creativity bubbles to the surface. And so I think the biggest thing that women do, and they get caught up, is in their masculine energy only. And then they deprive themselves of the nourishment, the compassion, the receptivity, of love from others, of the gifts of grace, of forgiveness, of releasing these sort of harsh, punishing voices that we have in ourselves, because we're still striving for perfectionism, right? Right? So that's a part of only being in your masculine energy, is that you think for some reason, and it's also some patriarchal social conditioning that, oh, we got to be beautiful, we got to be perfect, we've got to say and do the right things, we've got to be a pleaser, right? So, and surrender is a part of all that. And so I just recommend you surrender and give that up. Even the men who are found themselves really caught up in buying into that message, even the men have really strong sort of toxic messages about what it's like to be a man. And so we're focusing on like aspects of the empowered and aspects of the disempowered, right? And so it's really important that you adopt some allies, and your allies help you to actually eventually just learn how to embody these empowered masculinities, empowered feminine energies to thrive. And that would be integrity. And integrity is not a word that's talked about a lot, but being in alignment with yourself is essential for integrity. And there's many aspects about ourselves that we have to be in integrity with, and it can be with time and money, and I think a great way is like, how do you show up for yourself? I think that's one of the things that'll indicate where you're out of integrity, is how you show up for yourself. and how much you're in alignment with yourself. And it's the cornerstone of self accountability as well. So, like, if you say you're going to do something, then do it. And this is how you stay in alignment with yourself. This is how you actually build integrity and credibility. And I think that word is said a lot, like in corporate, about building accountability to be integrity. But being integrity with yourself, it comes from really truly knowing your value and respecting yourself, and knowing that you matter. And I think that a lot of people on this planet struggle with believing they matter, like that they have a contribution to make. And I think that a lot of people that I coach are in the entrepreneurial world, and they're here in some way, shape, or form because they recognize they have a contribution to make, and yet they struggle with it. And I think that even if you're really recognize that you're on a spiritual path, then you have to recognize that you have a contribution to make. First and foremost, it's to the own evolution of ourself. Because first and foremost, we need to be that contributor, that be the change that you want to see in the world. Oh my gosh, like, if that isn't a triggering statement, I don't know what is.
That's one of my favorite sayings.
Yeah.
I had that on a cup for a family gathering. It was like a reunion, and I put that on.
Oh,
And
that's really nice.
yeah, it was
How did
wonderful.
that go over?
It was great. Almost everybody came except for one who totally had said she was coming and didn't show. I was like, what? I was a little disappointed, but you know what? Everybody else showed, and we had such a really nice time. And we did a lot of healing in that because there was a lot of crazy stuff that go on in families. And so
Oh my goodness, there so is. I mean, that's like the foundation of really the wounded child, right? It's the wounded child. Um, the other ally is boundaries. And boundaries are so necessary. And boundaries are not just external, like um, they're really healthy. Inner boundaries are essential, and they help us stay in alignment. So having really healthy boundaries, inner and outer, help us to actually stay in integrity with ourselves, and how we behave and treat ourselves and others is all boundary contingent. And one of the strongest ways that we are going to be able to stay in empowered masculine and feminine energy is using good boundaries, because the empowered masculine, upholds our healthy boundaries.
that is so true. And everything you're saying is so valuable. I mean, I really love it because integrity was the big thing. I didn't even understand what integrity was when I was growing up. Who taught us what integrity was? These are like values that everyone needs to understand. And that's actually also learning to trust yourself and and that's like another one. But the boundaries is huge because I would always say yes. I didn't know the word no. And I finally had to learn that literally I've been sober 29 years. And when my best sponsor said to me, no is a complete sentence, Janet. And I was like, oh my God, she gave me permission. And nobody had ever given me, not that I needed it, but yet I didn't even know I could say that. It was like giving you permission, like you are valuable and you matter. So if you say no, it's okay. The world's not going to collapse. You're not going to lose everybody. They might respect you even more, which is kind of a new way of looking at it. You get respected more. So interesting what you're saying. I love it. I love it. So go ahead. I don't want to interrupt. Whoops. Yeah.
That was a beautiful lesson for you to learn at that young age, because I'm not sure when that word integrity was even introduced to me, but I did understand boundaries, and I mostly only understood boundaries on how to like demonstrate them
Yeah.
externally. So being a very young woman in the corporate field, so here's the funny thing is that I had this great acting career that I loved, and I was earning money
You've done everything.
with commercials and industrial films and stuff like that. And then I realized that, you know what, I need a real world job. And so I didn't forsake my acting career, but I did take on a corporate job. And so here was this young girl calling on really older men. I was calling on my father in sales. And so what I needed to learn, my first boundary was that I had to dress very masculine, or at least a very professional feminine, because if I dressed in externally in any way, shape, or form that I looked at all like I was trying to be sexy, I would
Right.
get on. So that was like my first thing. And I don't know if I was being in integrity with myself, but I at least learned how to establish a healthy boundary. And that healthy boundary taught me how to respect myself and how to say no. And
Mm.
so I love that you shared that example. That's perfect. Um, and the third thing I'd like to say that is an ally for us with learning how to adopt empowered masculine and feminine energies is abundance. Because abundance is more than just, oh, I want to earn a lot of money.
Yeah.
Abundance is a mindset,
Yeah.
and abundance really comes into play fully for you when your self-worth grows, because there's just this inner expansion of all of a sudden you believe what you believe, and you know what you're worth, and the doors open up for all this goodness.
Mm.
You get to have all these new things and experiences and feelings because you have just widened this realm of abundance of wonderful things. And so I feel like it starts in the mind, and believing that there is a source for anything you desire, anything that you want to be. And that mindset, it includes an appreciation of life in its fullness every day. And sometimes even appreciating the parts of life that are hard, like even like the death of someone. And that's something that not one of us cannot relate to. We've all had someone, whether it's in our family, our work colleague, in our neighborhood, our friends network. So, just appreciating like the fullness of life and nature. And even like I was thinking about how we had this massive, powerful storm the other day. Like there were hairballs like this big.
Wow.
And it was like such a showstopper. And, the thing that I appreciated so much after it was done, it was that in an awesome and strange way, it was exhilarating. But I also felt like extreme gratitude for like we didn't lose power, and no trees came down, and this newly outdoor space that my husband and I just created didn't get destroyed. And so I'm not saying that you have to only show appreciation for the abundance in life, but also that rain watered Mother Earth and it needed it.
Yes.
So there's so much abundance, and that we just, I think the most important thing is that to know that you're worthy, and that abundance is really a divine birthright.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I love that. And it's so true because everybody is learning that. I mean, the young people, they're all looking, they go to college and the first thing they want is to earn money because they've just spent a lot of money, but it doesn't always happen. And then life shifts and they're like going to they get really upset and they get despondent because they're not getting their dreams coming true. And that's a tough lesson, but maybe that's the reason it's happening, is that we all need to understand what a true abundance is, which I think that this pandemic has brought through for us. We're learning, true abundance. And so for you, I mean, how do you see some positives that have come out of this pandemic for you, and then also for people? What do you see?
I think that one of the first things that I experienced was grief.
Okay.
And I wanted to say that grief is such a teacher. And um, so for me, it was my 60th birthday in March, and I had all these plans. I was going to go out west, and we were
Oh,
going
wow.
to, and then I had all these events lined up. And you know how it is when you're having a big milestone birthday, you tend to
Oh,
put a lot
yeah.
of in the space of celebration so that it's a feel good moment. And I was feeling good about it. So that was like the first domino of grief that unfolded for me. My sister had just died 3 months earlier, or 4 months earlier, of a really, uh, ugly, sad cancer diagnosis. And
Yeah.
so that was like, I was only just coming up for air, with feeling stable and ready to re-embrace life. And then this happened. So I felt like I got re-submerged into the grief again. And then just everything collapsing was really sad. It was also a little bit scary. We know that.
Sure.
I remember for just a couple days I was down. And then I used these tools. I'm a life coach. I'm an empowerment coach. So I have all these tools and I used them, and it buoyed me. And I thought, oh, good, I feel better. Wow. I mean, if what about all these people? What are they feeling around the world who don't have tools to
Right.
help themselves feel better? Practices, and what are they feeling? And so, the first empowered thing I did was I had an inspired idea and I followed it. So this is an example of two things: the empowered feminine, like I was just in all this grief and I came out of it because I helped myself, right? So yay, I self-care, right?
Yeah.
I recognize
Really good.
I'm
Yeah.
not in homeostasis here. I am despondent. I am in a little bit of fear and a lot of shock. And so I took care of myself. And from that taking care of myself, I had a vision. I had an idea, an inspired idea. And that was, wow, I have the tools to help people. And I feel like this is a sense of urgency. I'm going to do this. And so that was my empowered feminine. And then my empowered masculine kicked in to honor me by taking action. That's the idea I'm going to act on. And so next thing you know, I assembled 6 women who are experts in their field of helping people. And I took my skills of being a podcaster and my comfort and my ability to be on camera and to use all this technology and software. And I immediately launched a summit for how to thrive in challenging times. So that was like the first positive thing that happened for me. And then I realized, wow, so what does this mean? Like, how can I do this routinely for people? How can I do this for myself routinely? Because now all of a sudden, all my business took place in person. I was like,
Sure.
we're sheltering at home now. I don't know how to do this. And I thought, well, it can't be the end of the world. And so what I felt it was a call to, it was deeper engagement,
Mm.
to have
Mm.
deeper engagement with people. And that was a really powerful thing that I learned, that that connection is what I still feel I'm missing the connection as I'm still growing it. But I knew it was a time for digging deep and for people to cultivate their inner strength, and that's the whole piece, right? And our faith, and even being creative like I was. And I always studied with Dr. Wayne Dyer, and there's something that he said that just always stuck with me, and that is, um, when you have a challenge, the solution doesn't come from the energy that created that challenge.
Right.
Solution comes from the energy of solution. And so that's where we have to like use our faith and our trust and dig deep and trust that there's a solution. So for any emotion that we're feeling in the moment, and that solution is that governing force is resilience. And um,
Mm.
this is something that we have to cultivate. And I think that a lot of people who life was going really good for them and didn't have a ton of financial or other kinds of challenge with their career or their relationships, they experienced challenge. And so all at once, the entire world was thrown into this massive challenge. And so I think that we all got to at least explore and learn about resiliency. And I think that trusting ourselves and operating from a place of love and not fear is like the first step and component of resiliency. And that's a gift, right? If you can do it. And I think that's just everyday resiliency.
Yeah.
And I think that
Yeah.
if you can learn resiliency, you can learn to thrive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's been my word. That's been really my word, last this year, and even the end of last year. I'm like, okay, resilience. That word just kept popping up. So it's great that you're mentioning it. So if people haven't been aware of it, it's so good to remind them that, you know what, the world hasn't ended, even though it's felt like it might, but it didn't. And we're still going.
And I'm not necessarily like, I don't want people to get that wrong vibe. There's a lot of people banting around this word of, oh, toxic positivity. And that's not what I'm talking about at
Okay.
all. You know what? When shit happens, like, get real with the shit, you know?
I love it.
Don't try to talk it away, speak it away.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm so on board with that. Absolutely.
Like feel it. Like, I felt my grief. That grief lasted for a couple of days, full on in. And my husband was, it means, like, God bless him, and he's evolved so much too. But he was just like, he was like, come on, we can do this, we can battle this. And I was just like, no, let me
Yeah,
have
battle. Yeah.
I deserve my grief. I mean, I'm having to forfeit a celebration I was planning on
Yes.
a long time. And I deserved it. I wanted to feel buoyed by this. I wanted to go out west and ski. So et cetera, right? So something that I'm reading this book, and it's really great. It's called Women Rowing North, and it's navigating life's currents and
Mhm.
flourishing as we age. And so Mary, I want to say it's Pfeiffer, Pipher. I think that's an F when it's a PH.
Yeah.
So she says, there is an ancient and almost universal cycle that involves trauma, despair, struggle, adaptation, and almost universal. Oh, I'm sorry, right? I'm repeating myself. Let me do this again. All right, so
Sure.
there's an ancient universal cycle that involves trauma, despair, struggle, adaptation,
Mm,
resolution.
mm,
Adaptation and resolution is the resilience piece.
mm.
And she goes on to say, this is a deepening cycle that prepares us for whatever comes next. And what's the whole thing about whatever comes next? We have no idea.
Exactly. So we can't panic. We've got to just like go with the flow, kind of.
Yes, and that's why resiliency is our friend. And so anyway, I just feel like, you know, that is an essential piece. So now let's get into talking about the empowered, the disempowered, right? The disempowered and of the masculine and the feminine. So why are they tripping us up? And I think the first thing to figure out, well, why is that tripping me up? Is So let's look at how it shows up in your life, because that's the first indicator of what is happening. And so I'm going to throw out some scenarios of what, like, the disempowered. And again, remember how that there's just as much disempowered masculine energy going on as there is feminine. But I think for both men and women, the disempowered feminine is really rampant because there's never been this basis for, like, either one of us. I think that women think that an empowered feminine is being the good girl because
Uh,
that's what you're told to be,
really? I never thought of that. That's interesting.
saying yes and pleasing, but it's very
Well, that is true. Yes, that's true. Yeah.
disempowered energy because we're not
Yep.
actually checking in with ourselves to say, you know,
Do I really want this? Yeah.
yeah, thank you,
We
exactly.
never ask ourselves that. We never do because we just give it away. We're the givers. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. But the whole thing about the holistic nature of giving is it can't be received unless, like, it has to have a reciprocal energetic process, right? You can't give to somebody who's not receiving it. And it's and if after a while, if that you're just a receiver and you're not the giver, I think your receiving is going to dry up because people are going to stop giving to you.
Well, this is true. Yeah.
Energetic attraction, right?
Yeah.
So
Mm,
here's the disempowered feminine.
mm,
Being insecure,
mm.
having doubt,
Yeah.
being needy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So here's the thing is that you don't meet your own needs, yet you're really needy, right? There's an indicator there. If you're really needy and it's off-putting, it's because you have some unmet needs within yourself, right?
And that's the radical responsibility you talk about. Those are the responsibilities that we have to take for ourselves. This is where we step into the mastery of who we're meant to be. But it takes a lot, but at least you have an awareness of it. And this is really so valuable. And I know we're going over a little, so I hope you're okay with it. So,
Yeah. Yes, and
okay.
I can be very succinct. And so, the disempowered is also considered to be the wounded. And I've talked a little bit about the wounded self. But part of why people become manipulative, and it's they cannot get their needs met being authentic. There's a wall between their authenticity and their need to ask in a way in which is genuinative. So manipulative. And I mean, men can be manipulative too. And then when you see people use guilt to sort of manipulate.
That is so true. Oh my God. You've just talked about my whole childhood and young life as a teenager at home. That is so perfect what you said. I'm just blown away because you brought this whole aha moment to me. I hope others are getting it because that was huge for me.
It is huge. The other interesting thing for women is disempowered or men, over emotional. Like when you see someone's reaction is not commensurate with the situation, they're triggered, right?
Oh yeah.
Very emotional. And it's like, okay. And then of course, what do we do when we're triggered is we typically blame somebody else.
And we react and we say things that are hurtful and unnecessary, and we're sorry. We're always sorry after. But
so
it does.
Exactly. So these are all examples of unempowered feminine energy, and also when you play the victim. So now here is so would it be better if I told you conversely what the empowered way to be is for a feminine energy?
Sure.
That makes sense? Okay.
Yeah.
Being intuitive.
Yeah.
Being grounded.
I love it.
Receptive. Even reflective. Compassionate and magnetic. How about that? That's juicy, right?
That is very juicy. Magnetic is so huge because when people gravitate towards you, then you're doing it right. It's almost like the universe is telling you you're doing it right. It's almost like your gift back. Like, okay, you finally got it. Here's your reward. Oh, that's so powerful.
And here's another one that everyone struggles with: vulnerability.
Oh yeah.
But vulnerability is just like going, oh my God, I'm feeling a little insecure right now. And so I'm just going to sit with it.
Yeah.
I'm a little sad today.
Yeah.
I don't know why yet. I'm just going to sit with it and feel it. Why? When has this happened to me before? What is this about?
And that's so true, isn't it? Because it's usually something from the past that we haven't resolved and we don't even acknowledge, or we're not even aware of it. It's the tip of the iceberg stuff that we all don't understand, that there's so much below that we're not connecting with. And I think that's the beauty of what's happened in this world right now, that it's caused us to look at the iceberg under the water. What's going on?
Absolutely. I mean, Janet, so above the iceberg is like how we're operating. It's us being conscious. Below the iceberg,
unconscious,
70%, it's like the wounded child, it's the unconscious.
Yes.
And I just want to say that when you're in flow, you're in the feminine. When something is effortless, you're in the feminine. When you're open and trusting, you're in the feminine. When you're in the creative, you're in the feminine. Now, the converse part of the unempowered masculine energy, which we can be in as well, it's like we're controlling. So if you're controlling all the time others and events and outcomes, then you've got a serious trust issue.
Yeah.
You don't feel safe. So that means you have a younger self that needs some healing, and you need your empowered masculine to step up and be more of a protectant for you, to say no, to put boundaries in places that you haven't had before. And just to know in advance that if you go and do that thing, you know that you're going to drink and you shouldn't. So you know what?
Oh, yeah.
You're going to set up an empowered masculine boundary and just say, you know what? Instead of doing that, tonight with this friend who asked me to go out and meet her for happy hour, I'm going to say, why don't we go for a walk and then dinner? And
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Sorry, gang, we just had a little bit of a glitch. We got frozen out. So but Melanie's back and she got more wisdom to share, and we're going to wrap it up soon.
so I think that we were just talking a little bit, I want to talk a little bit about the disempowered masculine, what that looks like. We were talking about controlling, when we try to over control, and it's just, we're lacking trust. We don't feel safe. When you're aggressive, withdrawing, you withdraw, you don't contribute, you don't participate. That's very toxic masculine or disempowered masculine energy. You're constantly in your head overthinking everything.
Oh, yeah.
So you're not dwelling in your body, you're not trusting. You're overly competitive, you're judgmental. It's very harsh, right? Abusive, whether it's verbally, it's physically, or even energetically. When you withhold,
Yeah,
it's a little punishing, right?
absolutely. It's passive aggressive.
Yes, exactly. And just when you're in an avoidant energy, you just don't want to bring your full self or show up fully. And so the empowered masculine is, you also are deeply present to yourself. Isn't that nice to know that in your masculine energy is you're deeply present to yourself? You don't judge, you're supportive, you're disciplined, which means you're still holding the structure. And the most beautiful metaphor I heard about what it's like to be in both, to be empowered masculine, is the empowered masculine is the banks of a river. It holds that flowing water to allow it to go down in whatever way it wants to flow, all the way down the banks, and the water can flow over a rock or underneath, but the banks are wide enough and strong enough that they hold the feminine essence.
Oh, it's beautiful. Oh my goodness, I love that.
Yeah, and so
makes so much sense.
It does, and this is how you can thrive. And under any circumstances, if you can imagine yourself is like and I have to do this throughout the day, because I tend to be a little on the creative side and a little too many ideas. So I love to meditate, and I do a lot of feminine stuff. So I have to actually engage my empowered masculine and call upon it and be like, okay, energy, I need empowered masculine energy right now, because I need to execute on creating this blah, blah, blah.
Yes, right? Yes.
So
that's the action. The empowered masculine is the action.
Yes, right. All that masculine doing energy, it needs to be in support of the feminine idea, the feminine's creativity, that new idea that you had. And that's the example I used when you said, well, what was one of the good things that came out of the pandemic for you? And I said, oh my God, I had this inspiration to do this summit. And my empowered masculine energy said, yeah, I got this, because I know how to record a podcast. I know who I can call upon to be a part of it. I can engage these. I can pull this together. So the empowered masculine is so good with the boundaries, is stable, is
yes,
enables you to feel safe. It acts as the protector. It's also honest, and it operates with integrity. So there's our ally again, the integrity. So that empowered masculine energy helps to uphold your boundaries and your discipline. Again, the structure of who we are. So you can have all the best ideas in the world, but if you can't execute on any of them, then what happens?
That's for darn sure. If you don't execute,
you cannot thrive, not in good times or bad times. So ultimately, we were talking about plugging into positive influences and being and maintaining this relationship with self. There's no spiritual bypassing your childhood wounds. You have to be present to it. You have to be the parent. It's called inner parenting when it's taking care of a younger self. And when you can dismantle that wall that has you feeling insecure and find out, well, why do I feel this way? When has this happened before?
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, you know, I really recommend journaling practices, and
Yeah.
and tracking it. It's really important that you keep a journal of all these experiences so that you can, when you are triggered and you think, oh my God, when have I been triggered before? When has this happened to me before? You can look back in your notes. You can see, well, my journal tells me that this is same old thing, but it's a slightly different variation, that so and so tries to tell me what to do. I react in a very not nice way,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, when you know when you're triggered.
Oh, absolutely. Don't
Yeah,
we all? Don't we all? Especially now, being so close together. All of us are, a lot of us are home. Many, many are working from home.
right.
Children are still sharing school, sometimes at home, sometimes in school. Well, school's about ending now, but
Yes,
um,
but
it's
still,
a whole new world for everybody.
it is.
And it had the positives and the negatives, like you're saying. And this is good because we got to look at ourselves as real human beings again. I mean, we weren't just doings, you know, the doings that we're always doing. We're human beings, and we were allowed to see ourselves as human beings again. And you know, this is what you're saying. This is such great information to help people understand why they feel like they feel, because they don't take the time to sit and go and do what you're saying. Maybe they will now because you're saying this is the best way to do it. Because when you hear how simple it can be, and it's always simpler than we even can imagine, because we always you know, complicate everything in the world. But you know, you're saying these beautiful things. It's very powerful. It's wonderful.
I'm happy to, I mean, part of my intention for and joy for being here today is just to like share what I know and help
Yeah.
somebody. Like we never know who we're going to touch and impact in a positive
Sure.
way. And I'm happy to help. I really, I understand that this is a time for requiring tools and practices and expanding our toolkit, because we're all here to make a positive contribution. Our souls are here for that. And you know, be available for change, be available to be resilient, and you're going to make all the difference in the world to thrive and have a joyous life. And I'm happy to help wherever I could.
Well, you've had the experience too, and you've been through it yourself. So you have the compassion for people to understand that. So that's what I'm feeling from you. So I just wanted to ask you, do you have a final message for people that they need to hear right now?
You know, take the time, give yourself permission, carve out space and time in your life to be with yourself. The most important relationship that you can have is with you,
Mhm.
and to love yourself, because it's really hard if you are inspired to make a big contribution in someone's life, or you just really want to get through your corporate job and do your side hustle, or just to be a contributing member of your family.
Oh no.
Then forth first, and dismantle the blocks that are in place. Unblocking is an absolute essential part of our evolution, spiritually, personally, mentally, emotionally. And it's actually our job, it's nobody else's. But we don't have to do it alone. We can do it in community, we can do it with support from others, a trusted friend, a mentor. You know, summits like this, oh my goodness, are just going to be so powerful for people. And I definitely, and I don't know if you, I'm happy to help if people want to like check out something that I'm offering. I'm not
Oh
sure how.
yeah, we definitely want to hear your offer. So please tell us. This is perfect opportunity. Yep.
Well, you know, I think that everybody is really busy. And I had this in mind. I created a mini course. And this mini course is designed to help you quickly learn how to embody your empowered and masculine and feminine energies. And it's going to help you learn how to, first and foremost, identify where you're showing up in your life unempowered. And
Mm.
you can get this. Are you going to?
We'll have all the links below. We just have to
Like,
make sure we have it. Yeah.
my website is liveinyourtruth.life, but I just think that this is something. that is going to be something that you can work through self-guided on your own with the tools, the exercises, the practices. And it's even going to have this like list of how to balance your masculine and feminine energy in a positive way. And it'll have be an exercise and actually a diagram that'll help you determine where am I at in this process.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, I'm happy to have that on my website for sale. And then I have a free gift because I really feel like that every one of us needs to have a really healthy self-care practice. And so I created a workbook. And this is something you can just download right off of my website. And it's liveinyourtruth.life.
Ah, beautiful.
So thank you so
Excellent.
much for having me here today. It's
Thank you. Oh my goodness. And yeah, this has been so powerful. And I just want to thank the audience for being here today. I always love to thank them because they're the key to why we're here. We are here to bring any message that they're important to, that they need to hear. And you know, we're always so, you know, grateful that you're here because we're all doing this together. And so if you have any feedback or comments on Melanie's amazing wisdom that she shared today, please, email us at ownyourdivinelight.com at gmail.com, and I will make sure Melanie gets it. You can email her directly because you'll have all her information in the links below. And Melanie, I just want to thank you so much because you are hugely owning who you are, your divine light, stepping into your full leadership, and it's done with so much passion and love and you've had, and you've led such a fulfilling life. So you're inspiring and sharing your authentic gift, and your light is shining with so much grace and joy. I mean, it was just such a wonderful to, listen and to hear all that you had to share. So thank you for sharing your brilliance today so much. And
Thank you. I have to say that this was, when you invited me to do this, I was thrilled. And I love your energy. I love Own Your Divine Light. And I'm like, yes, thank you. That's what I need to be doing. Yes.
yeah, we all do. We're all still learning how to do it all, but you're giving us so many great tools of how to get there. This is perfect what you have shared us. So I am Isla Serrona Miller, and I will see you all on the next episode. Oh, sorry.